Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, not joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John, Elaine, Woolscroft today. It's just me doing an intro first. We're on episode 179, and we're going to be jumping to an amazing interview that John did a few weeks back with the director of, by far, one of the most visually stunning, independent, genre-bending mysteries and thriller type of film that we've seen in a long time. This is an interview with George Popov of the UK film The Droving. Great interview. If you want kind of a first-hand look at how to undertake a feature-length film, maybe you're a filmmaker, you've done a bunch of shorts, and you really want to kind of take a look at how to undertake a feature-length film, George goes into some great detail on how he manages his set, specifically with The Droving, how he manages actors to get across the performance that he wants, how he works with his cinematographer and does what I personally don't do, which is he doesn't use storyboards, and I'm a big fan of using storyboards, and in fact, John mentions in the interview me by name because him and I have this kind of running gag of how we both go back and forth on storyboards. But it's really interesting to hear George's story about how he became a filmmaker and how he's really, ran with it in the UK, producing films like The Droving and his first film, Hex. So I'm going to throw it over to John, but this is John with George Popov of The Droving.
Do you like the solar system?
Yeah, it's quite cool, planets and stuff.
I am here with filmmaker George Popov, here to talk about his new film, The Droving. And just kind of a first question I ask everybody right off the bat, just to kind of get everybody to get a little background on you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks, John. It's good to be here. Well, I'm a filmmaker from the UK. I'm actually Bulgarian myself, so that's why maybe my accent doesn't sound the most British you can imagine. Before I came here and I studied here, and eventually, I formed a production company with my dear friend Jonathan Russell, and we've been making feature films since 2016. Our first being kind of like a folk horror movie called Hex, which was a kind of a period supernatural thriller that took place during the English Civil War and involved a witch and soldiers and all that kind of stuff. And our second film, The Droving, is just recently come out now on Amazon Prime Video, and that's a modern day thriller, and it takes place in the north of England in this kind of rural area. And there's a lot of mystery, and I think people have been enjoying it a lot so far. So I'm very proud of that.
Gotcha. And how did you get into filmmaking? Was it something you dabbled a lot with, like cameras when you were a kid? Was it something that you got into university, or was it something that you kind of got into as an adult? I'm always curious how people just like to fall into this world, because it seems so fun on the outside, and it is, but it's also a hell of a lot of work.
No, absolutely is. But no, I think I wasn't like one of those like Spielberg kids that was running around with dad's camera around the house. I think it was a bunch of things. I mean, I come from a family where my dad is an artist, my mother was an actress, my grandfather a theater director. So it just a whole house full of crazy people. So I was surrounded by all different kinds of arts constantly as a kid, and being always kind of subjected to kind of funny conversations and actors just coming in and out of the house, and all great paintings and music and all that kind of stuff, theater. So I think in some time that kind of grew to be for me to understand that I like all of those things, and I think I I saw an art form that combined all of them, and that was cinema. Like movies that I'll watch will have like all of these things combined, and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be the guy that puts it all together. So eventually that kind of went into me starting to like with little stories and everything, and I've always kind of like, I think I've thought about things very visually. So yeah, I think that was the start. It was like a maturing process, and by the time I was in my kind of late teens, I knew exactly what I needed to do.
Very cool. And yeah, obviously you mentioned it just a couple minutes ago here, but I did see it in my research. Before we kind of jump into the droving, can you tell me about Hex and what it was like, to do like a first feature length?
Yeah, I mean, like, no matter what you say, and even if you've made like a 7 million great short films, like you don't really know what it is until you jump into the feature, and it's a completely different experience. But I always knew that was the way to really get forward, because that's what people really watch. And I just was just looking at myself as a viewer, like, how many short films do I actually watch? I mean, it's great. There is a lot of great filmmakers who have made great careers by starting with shorts, but I just knew that we needed to do something bigger and make that leap. And it was we were just trying to make something that people wouldn't usually do, which is to make a period film that takes place in like the 17th century, and it has that particular atmosphere to it that's done on a very low budget. And it's shot very tight and everything, and I knew that will be, if we can pull it off, it will be impressive. And at the same time, I had good idea. I think in terms of a story, the Hex kind of there is a little bit more to it than just a period horror film with a witch in it. The more you watch it and the more you kind of get like what's the idea behind it. And I really wanted to express that and tell that story. So we managed to put it together, and we had some great professionals all around that helped us make it to the standard that it was. And the feedback that we received, especially from critics and everybody else, definitely gave us the chance to be like, okay, we're doing something. Like let's keep going, and on the next one with the drawing, let's try to be kind of even bigger and even more ambitious. And yeah, so far so good.
Absolutely, yeah. And with the droving, like, what inspired this film? Like, where did this idea come from?
Yeah, I think it's a few things, but one of the initial kind of motivations behind it was when Hex was coming out on Amazon the first time around, and we were doing our global release. We were celebrating it by going to this region of England that's called the Lake District, where Jonathan, my filmmaking partner, lives. And there was this festival in one of those little towns around it. Like, it's a beautiful, picturesque area, as you can see in the movie. And we went to watch this lantern festival that they had, and it was so beautiful, and everything was so enchanting in many ways. But I always kind of found the whole place around it, like in most in England, to have some kind of inherent melancholy to it. And there's always under like everything that seems so kind of happy and put together and everything. I always thought that there's a serious dark undercurrent, and I always wonder what it's, with all that history and everything and all these caves that is like, anything can be lurking there. So I just thought, like, when I was looking at the lanterns at the festival, I turned to him and said, like, you know what, like, I really would want to see like a good dark thriller chase happen in this, in the festival like this. And it was as simple as that. Like, I said that, and then a year later, when we were trying to put together a second film, the idea came back to my mind, and we combined it with another kind of very Twilight Zone storyline that we had in mind, and eventually that turned into the drawing, and just things happened very quickly after that.
And speaking of, I don't want to give anything away about the film, but there is, I'll speak vaguely, there is a festival scene in the film. Did you guys kind of like take cameras to an existing festival, or did you guys have to create that from the ground up?
Right. Well, the fact that you're asking me that question, I'll take it as a compliment, because if it looks like we could have created it ourselves, that's great, because the festival is quite big, and we knew that we'll have the film's called The Drawing, but it is based partially on a real festival that's called the Winter Drawing and exists in that area, in that town. We just kind of obviously made a kind of like a strange, darker version of it that fits to our film and the story that we're trying to tell, and we knew that we can base some story elements around it. So we went with. We shot at the real festival, but so we had to prepare a lot, because when you're trying to film a real event and not as a documentary, but you're trying to get shots that are really going to work for your film and be part of the overall style. You go there with a lot of cameras, you want to get a lot of footage, and to make sure that in the edit you can make it just look like the festival that you need, the festival that's in the world of the film, and not just some random festival where you can see like a little girl eating ice cream in the background. It was a real festival, but we did everything we can to really fit into our film.
Now, when I'm making something, I think of, okay, what do I kind of want to like pull from, in terms of being a cinephile, like what movies can kind of inspire some of the creative process here. Were there any movies in particular that you guys pulled from and that you pulled from that really said, okay, this is kind of like the feel we're going for, the motif or the tone or things of that nature?
Yeah, I think everybody did have some. I had a couple of films that helped my preparation that I also thought that it will help everybody universally. So I did recommend them to most of the crew members in the cast. But I think mostly everybody had their own individual pieces to be inspired from and pull from, because everybody has a different task. But for me, I don't like to pull from films that are similar. I think a lot of filmmakers like to do that first, which is, okay, this is the genre, this is the setting, this is everything. I need to look at something that's very, what other films are like this. Let's check it out. I try to avoid those because, exactly for that reason, because you're very impressioned as a filmmaker and you just might pull something straight. Right. For visuals, I'll look for one thing. For story elements, I'll look for at another film. And sometimes just for one scene, I might watch a film that has nothing to do with my film, but there's some similarity that just in my head makes sense. But I think the ones that are closest, especially in terms of atmosphere and visual style, and some of the themes are Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners and The Wailing, which is a Korean horror film that I kind of had those two on repeat quite a lot. And definitely helped me those. And then, I don't know, playing a bunch of Skyrim, I guess, which has nothing to do with the movie, but like, I don't know, to me it helped. And I listen to a lot of music as well. Like that helps me.
I gotcha. Now, in the best way possible, I kind of struggled for a while to kind of like encapsulate what type of movies is what it was, because I thought, at first it's a crime movie, then it's a thriller, it's a crime thriller, it's a psychological film, it's a horror movie, and like in the best way possible, I think this film kind of balances all of those different genres in a way that like a lesser film couldn't. So did you guys have one kind of idea in mind, or was it that like, when we write it, whatever subgenres we fall into? Right. I mean, like I as much as our distributor probably will hate that, it's like I try not to write with genre in mind that much. I think it's great and obviously helps your marketing a lot. And we definitely eventually we know how we're going to market the film even before we start writing it, which is very important, I think, for every filmmaker of how you're going to reach that audience. But I do like films that mix genres, and definitely I see this like has these thriller elements and some horror elements, and obviously there is a lot of the plot seems like a crime procedural, but then the more the film progresses, the more it turns into something else, and the darker it gets. And we had the idea of where we're playing, that it's going to be this mainly a thriller, and that's what we knew we were doing, because no matter what happens, that's the genre of the film. But I do like to kind of, as much as I can, to pull the rug under people and still give them something that they would enjoy, but they don't necessarily expect. Like I'm not saying that like, you expect some like kind of really dark, moody kind of film with an awesome atmosphere, and then it's a romantic comedy. Wow, I didn't expect that.
But you're still trying to keep in the same lanes. But at the same time, I like people to be surprised, and I think Hex had that thing where it's, you're sitting down to watch this kind of supernatural horror, and then it's still, by the end of it, it's still that genre. It's just it might not be ticking the boxes in the most kind of predictable way that you were thinking, hopefully. And even Hex, maybe like that was more of a discrepancy. It was more of a sort of film that like some people will sign up and will enjoy that, but some people might be kind of a little bit taken aback by how different it ends up being. I think The Droving still fulfills all the promises of the genres that are attached to it, but then it never really, it just stays in one where it's something that's quite cliche, hopefully.
Gotcha. In this movie, like surface level, obviously it's about a man trying to find his missing sister, but on more of like a deeper level, like a more of a metaphorical level, what would you say are some of the themes that are kind of below the surface?
I mean, there's a few that, the more you watch the film, they become quite obvious, which is, again, I'm not spoiling too much by saying that the guy who's looking for his sister, he's a soldier who's come back from tour, and the more you watch the film, the more you understand what kind of a soldier he was and what his place in the military is, and how that has influenced his character, and what methods he uses in order to find the truth of what's happened to her. So, I mean, if that narrows down the themes more to the inherent darkness that we all carry, and to some degree of how, because of what someone does, for a living, or who they are in general, how we can get conditioned by what we are made to do, and what we're told to do, and then when we are given a choice afterwards, and we're just being, in this case, he's just a civilian, and he's just trying to cope with the loss of his sister, how all of that conditioning then influences who you actually become at the end. It's like what you do might define who you are. And that's just one of the themes. I think there's a lot of other ones that, classic themes about regrets and revenge and all of that. But I think if I have to be very broad, and in that it also includes a lot of the other characters in the film, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's a lot about isolation and loneliness, because I think all the characters that you meet, especially the main character, have been kind of marginalized emotionally, and they're looking to fill that void with something, and sometimes it's by good intentions, sometimes it's by really horrible actions, and I think at the end of the day, like, the film just shows that, yeah, we all sometimes go to horrible lengths to just get the people who we love, and that's it.
And speaking on pre-production level, I noticed some overlap in the casting from Hex to Droving. How important is it to work with people that and trust, in those kind of situations?
Oh, sure. I mean, it was born in more than just familiarity and convenience, because when you're working with great actors, and you hit something, but then you see there's a lot more that we can do, and you really enjoy working with them. It's very hard not to try to do that again and do it in a different way, or explore even more. But we didn't write The Droving with actors that much in mind. We try, Jonathan, not to write the script, for someone in particular, because I think sometimes that can be dangerous. Unless you're writing it for a huge star that's going to get your huge movie made, sure, I understand that. But even then, as much as we like everybody to work with, and we are hoping to get them back, we're not trying to fit the characters for the people, and we try to write the best characters that serve the story, and then see if we're going to cast someone completely new, or if it's going to work with someone who we've already have a great working relationship with. So in the case of Daniel Waldroyd and Susie Francis Garten, it just very naturally came into those characters, and it just made a lot of sense. And I think it was showing a lot of aspects of them that Hex didn't. And I really enjoy that. And look, if Martin Scorsese can do it, then so can we. So
right. Now Daniel, is it Oldroyd?
Oldroyd, yes.
Now he was in just about, if not every scene.
Yeah.
can you speak to what it was like to prepare him for being, on set every day, dialogue heavy scenes, and with such, intensity for the whole go of it, something like that.
Yeah, I basically told him it's going to be very difficult, so he better show up. Well, he's playing a soldier, so I kind of had to assume that role a little bit, and I think he enjoyed it because I think it helped. But now I do a lot of preparation with the actors prior. We just talk a lot about exactly those themes and the characters and everything, and I'm very outspoken in terms of all the themes of the script and the stuff that we're trying to say in overall. So when it comes time to the actual the performance, I don't have to do a terrible amount of direction in between the actual takes. It will become a bit more technical, or we get something that's more, you don't want to start explaining what's the point of the movie, when you're shooting the scene. So yeah, he had a lot of preparation as well on his own. Like he had an advisor who actually worked on, who was in a very similar position in the military that Martin, the character, is. So Dan had like a great way to learn from someone and kind of be coached about certain ways, like how soldiers behave, or soldiers that are particularly in that bracket of the army. So he kind of did a little bit of training with him and everything. So he probably, that was probably very tough for him, but he enjoyed it, and he watched a lot of films as well that put him in that mindset. But yeah, like I think he's an absolute trooper, and it's a difficult role. Like when me and Jonathan kind of finished with the script, we kind of looked at each other and just went like, this is very hard. Like, this is unactable. Like, what did we do? But no, Dan's great, and he stepped up to the challenge, and he's amazing.
Yeah, that actually leads into my next question, because if you're shooting like a comedy that's got a lot of improv and everybody's cracking up as soon as they all cut, the crew's laughing and stuff, it makes it for, a little easier time on set. What was it like with a story that's so intense and kind of, and so emotional?
Yeah.
Were the actors and the crew more exhausted than usual after shooting, after wrap for the night kind of thing? Or
physically exhausted always. I mean, like, even though like on this film we had a lot more time than we did on Hex, like it was still a lot of shoots, there was a lot of nights, a lot of it was pretty cold, so that always. But in terms of the actual mood on set, it's you always, like, that was the same thing with Hex. Like, Hex is a pretty heavy film in with its themes, but the jokes in between takes never stopped. It was just, constantly we'll make jokes about things, or we'll bring like someone will come up with a T-shirt that will just become a meme for the next week or something, and we'll be doing impressions of Christopher Walken or whatever. And then literally the next moment, someone's getting their throat sliced, or there's like a big emotional scene. So everybody's like very professional, but then at the same time, our sets are very, very, kind of easygoing when it comes to that, and I think it helps. I think that removal from the role in between, it definitely helps those actors to kind of vent. And we have some actors that are a little bit more kind of, what sometimes a little bit inaccurately called the method, where, they just try to be the character on set all the time. So with them, they can distance themselves, or I'll make sure that, the set is accommodated for how they prefer to work. But most of the time, I think everybody prefers that, we have it easy going, and we could be shooting something, absolutely, very sad or very emotional or challenging. But then in between, we're like, quoting American Psycho or something. So.
And can you speak to putting together an independent film that looks so professional? And I'll tell anybody right now, if you check this out, it's comparable to anything that's got a $50 million budget out there. The movie looked fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. And like, so, what did you guys shoot on? How did you was it that you just absolutely trusted the cinematographer, the sound spread? How do you, on a more independent level, if you're more of our like filmmaking audience, how do you make a film on a smaller budget look as good as your guys did?
Well, I think it's all of the above, but I'll start with the more main things, which is I don't think that the tech actually matters that much. I don't there's a lot of filmmakers who think that what makes a Hollywood movie look like a Hollywood movie, a real Hollywood movie, like Tommy Wiseau says.
Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be like Tommy Wiseau is what I'm trying to say. But his inspirational way is like you have to have the dedication. But that aside, I don't think the tech matters that much. Like a lot of people were thinking and looking like, oh, everything should be shot on the same Arri Alexa that the Avengers were shot on. And I've seen some films that are shot with those cameras and they look horrible. And then I know of films that were shot on the phone and they won festivals. So
yeah.
The moment you get that out of your mindset and say, okay, that's not what defines, the professional look, but it's almost everything else. It's you have to have like everybody who is part of the crew, needs to be trying to make the same standard that you're going for. So everybody wants to do better than they possibly even can at this stage. Everybody is aspired to reach like further than maybe the film should be able to reach. And that includes cinematographer, that includes like sound designer, that includes your music, colorist, everybody. And also you just have to, if you're like for filmmakers who are like with, in my profession, if you're a director, you just have to ensure that you're very careful with every single detail at that point, because they say about big, a lot of big directors, who are very controlling or whatever, or, your Kubricks or your, Ridley Scotts or James Cameron, that they have a great attention to detail and they can afford it because they have the time and they have the crew and they have everything. That's the case. But I think it applies double to filmmakers who are really trying to reach that extra quality in their look. You have to be very careful with the details, because that's the devil's in the details when you compare an indie movie to a Hollywood one. Because if you don't have the stars that really make that separation, or the big budget for your CGI, then you have to be great for everything else, and that it's all the way down to the font that you're using. That, which is a pet peeve of mine. Like sometimes I just see the opening credits of a film and I go like, all right, this is cheap. It sounds a bit shitty, but it's the truth, and you have to pay that attention to it, and don't try to, reach for something that you can't nail. Like both Hex and the drawing people said like, oh, this looks very professional, this looks great. Yes, but if I decided to put like a CGI Bigfoot in it, at some point, if the story warranted it, it's the best of what you can do with your abilities and your money, but it still is below great. It's below like the industry standard. Just don't do it. Don't have it in your story. It has to look like there's a lot of things in the drawing that if I had like, the $50 million budget, that would have been able to improve it or change a little bit, but there's so many things that doesn't matter how much money I had, it will be exactly the same. And those are all things that are not dependent on money, just to attention to detail and what they mean in the film.
Gotcha. And how much is that a struggle between like, on an independent level, we don't have as much time as, say, a major studio film, but at the same time, you can't rush anything, because if you rush things in filmmaking, something's going to go wrong or it's not going to look right. How do you find that balance between like, got to get it done, but it can't compromise anything in terms of, how fast I shoot something or direct the actors, etc.
Yeah, I think that's the eternal question with independent filmmaking. I'm not sure I have the answer. I think you are trying to, I think if you have good preparation, I think you can nullify, that dilemma quite a lot, because, you can take a lot of time from when you're at set, when it's like you're going to lose light, or you have to move away from this location because only have it for a few hours, or any of the problems that you might have. If you've prepared prior to knowing what your shots are going to be, or you've done your kind of heavy lifting with your actors, like I said earlier. Like, you don't have to waste that time in between takes of just making sure that your actor knows what the emotion of the character is supposed to be. And so you're not wasting that time in between takes. It's going to go towards, just having more time at that location. You can just go to the second take right away. And, the preparation definitely helps. Now, I'll be a bit hypocritical if I said that, because, for example, me and Harry Young, my DOP, we don't storyboard, which most independent filmmakers will be like, what the fuck? I'm
with you. I don't either. And Brian, my co-host here, yeah, he wants to like slap me silly every time I say it. But sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, every time when I talk on some sort of filmmakers podcast or something, and when I mention that, they're like, what? Like, because that's really, that's what I'm preaching right now. I'm preaching preparation and knowing what exactly needs to be. But I do have to say that this applies to, me personally and Harry, and I don't think that applies to everybody else. We've worked on a few things, and we kind of understand each other with just a look, and we have like similar aesthetics in a lot of ways. And we do a lot of preparation in terms of talking hugely, before the film, and we shot list everything. We just don't need a storyboard, and it gives us a certain visual freedom that then we can exploit in the film. And I do a lot of preparation with the locations. Like, I scout them early. I know exactly what they look like. I know exactly what we're shooting. Like, locations inspire me hugely, and I really know what they should look like. So for every scene, I know exactly what kind of the mood and the look is, and Harry does too. So we don't really need to have like everything, perfectly drawn exactly as the shot's going to be. Also, we suck at drawing, so that's another that's another thing. But even if we were great, like, it's not the way we work. But if you feel like if you don't have that with your DOP, if you've done like a short or a music video or maybe even the feature with someone, and you've seen that you're losing time because for a long time you don't know where to put the camera, well, that means you need to storyboard, and not because that you're a lesser filmmaker. On contrary, all the ones that I mentioned earlier, they like to storyboard, other than Kubrick, and that's great, and you should do it. And if you can draw nicely as well, whatever works for you, whatever saves you the time to, when you're trying to shoot the scene, not to be wondering, oh, is the camera going to be here or there? What I'm trying to say right now, you just should have the answer. You should have the answer all the time. And I mean, it sounds harsh, but as a director, even if it's like the wrong answer, you should have it.
Gotcha. Now, and it seems more and more we see films that push for as much noise and nonsense as they could muster because they don't really trust their audience. You chose to trust your audience and give them something more like methodical, building, and intelligent. Was there any fear or anybody kind of talking in your ear that like if you make a smart movie that you might lose an audience in that sense?
I think smart wasn't the problem. I think it's because like in some ways in Hex I went like too far in some direction. It's a very kind of slow and methodical film, and that's why there's either people who say that this is like Tarkovsky and Terrence Malick and they absolutely love it, and then there's other ones who say this is the most boring piece of shit I've ever seen in my life, which is fine, because like both of those can be right depending on what type of film they try to enjoy. So because I kind of went like full on with Hex, then kind of pulling back from that and still being able to retain kind of the atmosphere to still be strong and to really subject people to kind of a wonderful sense of what the world is and the music and the sound design and all and the visuals and all that kind of stuff. I knew I can do that with still by shaving like a good 8 minutes from the film, without that to compromise any vision or any artistic quality. So with the drawing, I didn't have that worry too much because I already know what an extreme was. And yeah, I think there is some Hail Marys, I would say, in the drawing, as you're saying, like something some people might find like a little bit more challenging or unexpected. but I think they're towards like the second half of the film, and by this point, I think people were engrossed in the story, and there's a lot of effects if there might be a moment of the film that you're not quite understand or enjoy at this point, there's probably going to be something later on that's either going to explain it or address it. I don't like to leave like loose ends. I didn't write it with Damon Lindelof, so like everything by the end of it should feel complete. So yeah, I don't think like deep or intelligent was the problem. Just trying to keep it watchable.
But next time, obviously, you put zombies in this.
Yeah. Look, I enjoy good zombies, but stuff like Train to Busan, like that's my jam. But anything under that, like, yeah, maybe not.
Obviously, as an American, I always assume, like we always assume, that everything's about us and everything's made for us. When making a film, do you consider how it will play overseas at all, or is it just making the best film that's possible for the audience that you're making it?
It's interesting because like even though it's an English movie, I'm not English myself, so like it's much easier to do that when you're not in that headspace. Like I already tried to make a film that's international, because I am international. So, and I've you can probably guess by some of my accent, I've lived in America for a little bit. It was actually the first time I was abroad for a long time. I spent the better portion of a year in Colorado, and it was amazing. I loved everybody there. I definitely have experienced a few different kind of cultures and people, and me coming from a different one anyway. Those films are kind of inherently English in many ways because it's shot here, and I love to tap into the folklore or the history or kind of the locations and just the overall atmosphere. But it always is from the eyes a bit of a foreigner. Like, as I said, I think that's what makes these films a little bit more unique, because I'm seeing them in a way that a lot of people who've lived here and see those places all their lives, they're not going to see it that way. They're not exotic to them. To me, they are. And I think all my films, even though they're shot here, they come from the point of view of a foreigner. So I think they should play just as well everywhere else. And that was the case with X, and I believe it will be the case here as well.
Gotcha. And so what's the next steps for the film in terms of getting the word out, and where can people see it? And then what's the next couple steps forward for the film?
I mean, like we are right now we are on Amazon Prime in about 70 English-speaking territories. So you would have it in the US, in Canada, and in the UK, and a bunch of other places. We're going to be hitting more and more new platforms as the year progresses. So pretty much everything that you might have on, including Apple TV, and you have your Google Play and Tubi and a lot of other up and coming platforms, possibly IMDb TV, and like all of those things that are not even out yet. So we have a great distributor which they are American, by the way. They're in LA, Hollywood, and they know exactly how everything works in terms of the industry in the US, and they're putting us in as many places as possible, which is an amazing opportunity, and that's incredible. So that's in terms of where you can watch the film soon in so many different places. But right now you can do it on Amazon Prime, and we'll just continue on shouting about the film. We'll have towards the end of the year, the DVDs and the Blu-rays will start coming out, where we have some great special features that will probably answer a lot of the questions that you asked me much better than I can right now, and it will give you more information. So if everybody, especially for filmmakers, if you want to see more about how we did stuff, those commentaries and extra features will be great. And also for people who, if you love the visuals of in the places that we have in the film in the UK and they're interested, to be able to see more of it. And eventually we'll also do it at the time of the Real Winter Jobbing Festival, which is at the end of October. So we kind of hope to really do an event every year with our film, and that's great because we've already had like local cinemas that they even projected the trailer in front of stuff like Joker and Terminator and so on and so forth. So they've been very helpful. So yeah, a lot of stuff, and you can everybody will get updated if they go on our Twitter account, which is at Rubicon Films UK. They'll be able to see like all the news about what's happening with the film, all the new reviews, all like a bunch of other materials that we're posting every day. Facebook as well. We have a Facebook group for the Droving that's called, surprisingly, the Droving, and we have a different one for Hex as well. And we're also on Instagram. Same thing, at Rubicon Films UK.
Gotcha. And I would tell anybody, I know we're all locked inside right now, and if you feel like you've watched all of Netflix and The Office 10,000 times, and you're looking for something new, and you want to support independent cinema, I know there's usually like, what does that mean? It's going to look like junk. Like this is an independent film that you can watch. It looks as good as anything else you're going to see out there. It's an entertaining story. It's a smart story. So you're actually going to the intelligent part of your brain is going to be challenged. So please check out The Droving. I enjoyed it immensely. I was so happy to have you on to be able to talk about it. And just support independent cinema, and don't worry about it having to be junk, because this is fantastic film. Like I said, I put it up against anything else that's out there. And check out the movie and support independent
Thank you
cinema.
very much, John. Those some very kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then is it just kind of like, are you guys taking a break right now and focusing on getting this film out there, or do you guys already have maybe some wheels turning in pre-production for the next gig, or is it just kind of focusing on this right now?
Look, I'm a director. I'm always getting ahead of myself before things are finished. So before even this was done, me and Jonathan worked on a bunch of possible future projects. We have quite a few kind of exciting ones. The ones that's the most complete, and we have probably the best script that we've ever written, is called Iron Hearts, and it's a story which is basically kind of like our version of the Beauty and the Beast tale, but it's how should I say, for a lot more grown up audience. So if you've loved the original Disney movie as a kid, and if you like the fairy tale, and now you've grown up and you watched Game of Thrones while it was good and you loved it, you would love this one as well. It's if you like the visuals and atmosphere of something like Hex and the Droving, it's kind of like that. Like you're gonna get a feel of a kind of like of a dark fairy tale with adventure and romance and violence and everything. But I love the characters that we played with, and I think a lot of people around the world would enjoy. So we're working on this now, and that's a much bigger film as well. So we're definitely gonna need some help from around, like a few more producers and production companies to involve them with, because it's the next step after something like The Droving. But we'll see how long that will take. But we have a few more projects kind of ready to go as well. But we'll see what feels best. And you know how it is with films. Like you even without coronaviruses, things can fold in the last possible minute, and something can always fall apart. So I like to have Plan B, C, D. So we'll have something. We'll have things ready, but we're also taking care of the drawing, making sure that as much people as possible hear about it.
Yeah, you hear some of these movies that they was in production for 14 years. It's like, oh my god,
Absolutely, yeah. And especially for some filmmakers that you're thinking like, oh, if they couldn't get it made for 20 years, what chance do I have? So I have to be ready.
But George, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about The Droving. And I know sometimes Psychos Nation, we talk about movies that aren't out yet and you can't see, but this one you can, so go check it out. And George, best of luck to you. Please keep us updated on anything, and we'll make sure that we update our audience on it. And I can't wait for the next one to come out, and hopefully we'll have you back on to talk about that whenever that time comes.
Absolutely, man. I enjoyed it. Good luck to you and you guys, and you have a great podcast. I'll keep on listening as a fan.
Thanks, man. Thanks, appreciate that. All right. Take care, and hopefully we'll be
Cheers,
in
buddy.
touch soon.
Take care.
Thank you again to George Popov for that amazing interview. Be sure to check out The Droving on Amazon Prime today, as well as follow it on social media. We'll have those listed in our show notes. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. You can also find us at the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw away, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. We will see you next time.
Epicast.